Welcome back to Audiobook Club, the channel where we break down life-changing books into powerful, bite-sized summaries so you can learn more in less time. Today's book is one of the most influential self-development reads of our time, Atomic Habits by James Clear, a groundbreaking guide that shows how small changes done consistently can lead to extraordinary results.
Chapter 1. The Surprising Power of Atomic Habits. Have you ever felt like your efforts don't matter? Like no matter how hard you try, you're stuck spinning your wheels? Well, here's the truth. Small habits can make a huge difference, just not right away. In this first chapter, James Clear introduces us to the surprising power of atomic habits. These tiny changes might seem insignificant at first, but over time, they compound into something extraordinary. Think about this analogy. Imagine planting a tree. On day one, all you see is a little seedling sticking out of the ground. Nothing impressive, right? But day after day, as you water it and care for it, that small plant grows stronger roots, taller branches, and eventually becomes a towering tree. Your habits work the same way. At first, progress feels invisible, but stick with them long enough and their impact will astonish you. Here's a hypothetical example. Let's say you decide to read just 2 pages of a book every single day. Sounds easy, doesn't it? Now fast forward 1 year. Those 2 pages add up to over 700 pages, a whole library of knowledge tucked inside your brain. That's the magic of compounding habits. Tiny actions repeated consistently lead to massive results. But let's be honest, it's tempting to dismiss small habits because they don't deliver instant gratification. We live in a world obsessed with quick wins. Diets promise lose 10 pounds in 10 days, and fitness programs guarantee 6-pack abs in 6 weeks. But real growth takes patience. It's less about dramatic leaps and more about steady steps forward. Now pause for a moment and ask yourself, what's one small habit you've been neglecting lately? Maybe it's drinking more water, taking 5 minutes to stretch, or writing down 3 things you're grateful for each night. Whatever it is, remember, it's not about perfection, it's about consistency. Speaking of consistency, there's a great story in this chapter about British cycling. Back in 2003, they hired a new performance director named Dave Brailsford. His philosophy was simple. Focus on improving every tiny detail by just 1%. Things like redesigning bike seats, teaching riders how to wash their hands properly to avoid illness, even painting the floors of the team truck white to spot dust and keep bikes cleaner. None of these changes seemed groundbreaking on their own, but guess what happened? Over time, those 1% improvements added up, and within a few years, British cyclists were dominating the sport, winning gold medals and breaking records. This is the essence of atomic habits, incremental gains that stack up over time. And here's the kicker. It works whether you're an elite athlete or someone just trying to get healthier, happier, or more productive. So here's another question for you. Where do you want to be a year from now? Picture that version of yourself clearly. Now think about the small daily habits that could help you get there. Are you willing to commit to them, even if the payoff isn't immediate? The key takeaway from this chapter is this. Success isn't reserved for the gifted or the lucky. It's built through small, consistent actions. You don't have to transform overnight. You just need to show up today, tomorrow, and the next day. Before we move on, take a moment to reflect. What's one area of your life where you'd like to start making small improvements? Write it down. Saying it out loud or putting pen to paper makes it real and actionable. All right,
great.
that wraps up
Let's
chapter
move
1.
on to Chapter 2 of Atomic Habits. This chapter dives into the concept that your habits shape your identity and vice versa. It's a powerful reminder that who you become is just as important as what you achieve. Here we go. Chapter 2, How Your Habits Shape Your Identity and Vice Versa. Let me ask you something. When you think about changing your habits, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
For most people, it's about setting goals, losing weight, saving money, learning a new skill. But James Clear flips the script in this chapter. He says the real secret to lasting change isn't focusing on what you want to achieve. It's about who you want to become. Here's an analogy. Imagine you're building a house. Goals are like the blueprint. They give you direction and purpose. But systems, or habits, are the actual bricks and mortar. Without strong systems in place, even the best blueprint won't get you very far. And here's the kicker. The ultimate system is your identity. Every action you take either reinforces or contradicts the type of person you believe you are. Think about it this way. If you see yourself as someone who values health, you'll naturally gravitate toward behaviors that align with that belief. Eating nutritious food, exercising regularly, getting enough sleep. On the flip side, if you identify as not a morning person, you'll likely struggle to wake up early, no matter how many alarms you set. Your identity shapes your actions more than anything else. Now, here's a hypothetical example. Let's say you want to start running regularly. Instead of telling yourself, I need to run 5 miles every day, try shifting your mindset. Tell yourself, I am a runner. Sounds simple, right? But that small shift can make all the difference. Why? Because when your behavior aligns with your identity, sticking to your habits feels less like discipline and more like living authentically. But here's the challenge. Changing your identity isn't easy. Most of us cling to old beliefs about ourselves, even when they no longer serve us. Maybe you've always thought of yourself as bad with money or not creative. Those labels might feel true, but they're not set in stone. You have the power to rewrite your story one habit at a time. So pause for a moment and ask yourself, what kind of person do you want to be? Not tomorrow, not next year, but today. Is it someone who prioritizes family? Someone who embraces curiosity? Someone who shows resilience in tough times? Defining that vision is the first step toward meaningful change. There's a great line in this chapter. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. Think about that. Each choice you make, whether it's choosing water over soda or showing up 5 minutes early for a meeting, is casting a vote for your future self. The more votes you cast in favor of your desired identity, the stronger that identity becomes. Let me share another example. Say you're trying to quit smoking. Telling yourself, I'm trying to quit, still leaves room for doubt. But declaring, I am a non-smoker, locks you into a new identity. Suddenly, lighting up a cigarette doesn't just feel unhealthy, it feels out of character. That's the power of identity-based habits. Now here's a reflection question for you. Are there any negative identities you've been holding on to? Maybe you've labeled yourself as lazy, unorganized, or afraid of failure. What would happen if you let go of those stories and started writing a new narrative? The takeaway from this chapter is clear. True behavior change starts on the inside. It's not about forcing yourself to adopt new habits. It's about becoming the kind of person who naturally embodies them. As James Clear puts it, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Before we wrap this up, take a moment to reflect. What's one positive identity you'd like to embrace moving forward? Write it down. Say it out loud. Let it sink in. Remember, transformation begins with believing.
Okay,
All right,
perfect.
that wraps up chapter
Let's
2.
continue with Chapter 3 of Atomic Habits. This chapter dives into the 4 laws of behavior change, which James Clear describes as the framework for building good habits and breaking bad ones. These laws are simple yet powerful, and they'll give you a clear roadmap for creating lasting change. Here we go. Chapter 3, How to Build Better Habits in 4 Simple Steps. Have you ever wondered why some habits stick while others fizzle out? Why is it so easy to scroll through social media, but so hard to stick to a workout routine? In this chapter, James Clear breaks down the science behind habit formation and introduces us to the 4 laws of behavior change. Think of these laws as a cheat code for building better habits. Here's the big idea.
Every habit follows a 4-step process called the habit loop. It starts with a cue, which triggers your brain to initiate a behavior. Then comes craving, the motivational force behind every action. Next is the response, or the actual habit you perform. Finally, there's the reward, which satisfies your craving and reinforces the habit for next time. Now, here's an analogy. Imagine walking into your kitchen and smelling fresh cookies baking in the oven. That smell is the cue. It grabs your attention. The craving isn't just the cookie itself, it's the promise of feeling happy or comforted. The response is opening the oven, grabbing a cookie, and taking a bite. And the reward, that warm, gooey goodness melting in your mouth. The more rewarding the experience, the more likely you are to repeat it. James Clear takes this framework and flips it into actionable steps. He calls them the 4 laws of behavior change. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. Let's break each one down. First up, make it obvious. This law is all about cues. If you want to build a new habit, you need to design your environment so the cue is impossible to ignore. For example, if you're trying to drink more water, keep a full glass on your desk. If you're working on reading daily, leave your book open on your nightstand. Out of sight, out of mind, but the reverse is also true. When something is visible, it's easier to act on. Here's a reflection question. What cues could you add to your environment to support your desired habits? Are there reminders you can set up to nudge yourself in the right direction? Next, make it attractive. We're wired to pursue behaviors that feel pleasurable or rewarding. So if you want to adopt a habit, find a way to make it appealing. One trick James Clear suggests is temptation bundling. Pair something you have to do with something you want to do. For instance, only listen to your favorite podcast while you're at the gym. Or treat yourself to a latte from your favorite coffee shop, but only after completing your morning writing session. Let me share a hypothetical example. Say you hate doing household chores. Instead of dreading laundry day, turn it into a mini celebration. Blast your favorite playlist, dance around, and make folding clothes fun. Suddenly, the chore feels less like a burden and more like an opportunity to enjoy yourself. Third, make it easy. This law might be the most important of all. If you want to master a habit, reduce the friction required to perform it. Start small, so small that it feels almost laughably easy. Want to meditate daily? Begin with just 2 minutes. Trying to write a novel? Commit to a single sentence per day. The goal is to lower the barrier to entry so skipping the habit feels harder than doing it. Ask yourself, where are the roadblocks keeping you from sticking to your habits? Can you simplify the process? Maybe prep your gym bag the night before or automate bill payments so you don't have to think about them. Finally, make it satisfying. Rewards close the habit loop by reinforcing the behavior. The key is to give yourself immediate feedback. For example, track your progress visually, a checklist, a habit tracker, or even moving a paperclip from one jar to another. Seeing tangible evidence of your efforts boosts motivation and keeps you going. But beware of short-term rewards that sabotage long-term goals. Eating a pint of ice cream might feel great now, but it won't help your fitness journey. Instead, celebrate wins that align with your desired identity. Finished a workout? Treat yourself to a relaxing bath or a few minutes of journaling about how accomplished you feel. Now, let's tie it all together with one final reflection question. Which of the 4 laws do you think would make the biggest impact on your current habits? Is there a specific area where you could apply these principles today? The takeaway from this chapter is simple. Habits aren't random. They follow predictable patterns. By mastering the 4 laws of behavior change, you can design your life to support the habits you want and eliminate the ones you don't.
Let's move on to Chapter 4 of Atomic Habits. This chapter focuses on the first law of behavior change, making habits obvious. James Clear explains how our environments play a critical role in shaping our behaviors, often more than we realize. By intentionally designing our surroundings, we can make good habits easier to adopt and bad habits harder to fall into. Here we go. Chapter 4,
The man who didn't look right. Have you ever noticed how certain people seem to have their lives together while others constantly struggle? It's easy to chalk it up to willpower or discipline, but what if the real difference lies in something much simpler? In this chapter, James Clear dives deep into the idea that environment is the invisible hand that shapes our behavior. Here's an analogy. Think about a fish swimming in water. The fish doesn't notice the water because it's always there. It's part of its world. Similarly, we often overlook how much our surroundings influence us. But once you start paying attention, you'll see just how powerful your environment can be. Let me share a story from the book. There was a man named Morgan Housel who worked at a financial firm. One day he realized his colleagues were gaining weight, not because they lacked self-control, but because the office culture made unhealthy eating unavoidable. Free snacks, sugary drinks, and catered lunches were everywhere. No matter how disciplined someone tried to be, the environment kept pulling them toward poor choices. Once they redesigned the space, replacing junk food with healthier options, the team naturally started making better decisions. This brings us to a key concept. Cues are the triggers for our habits. If you want to build a new habit, you need to make the cue obvious. And if you want to break a bad habit, you need to make the cue invisible, or at least harder to access. Now, here's a hypothetical example. Imagine you're trying to cut back on mindless snacking at home. Instead of keeping chips and cookies on the counter, store them in a high cabinet where they're out of sight. Meanwhile, place a bowl of fresh fruit or nuts within arm's reach. Suddenly, the healthy option becomes the default choice, not because you're forcing yourself, but because it's right there in front of you. James Clear introduces a strategy called environmental design in this chapter. It's all about setting up your space to support the habits you want. For instance, if you want to read more books, create a cozy reading nook with good lighting and a stack of your favorite titles nearby. If you're working on meditating daily, designate a quiet corner of your home as your meditation spot. Over time, simply being in that space will trigger the desired behavior. But here's the flip side. What about breaking bad habits? One effective technique is called habit stacking. This involves linking a new habit to an existing one. For example, if you already brush your teeth every morning, you could stack a quick stretch routine immediately after. Or if you drink coffee every afternoon, use that moment as a cue to write down 3 things you're grateful for. Now pause for a moment and ask yourself, how does your current environment encourage or discourage your habits? Are there cues around you that nudge you toward behaviors you'd rather avoid? Conversely, are there ways you can rearrange your space to promote the actions you want to take? There's another fascinating idea in this chapter. Context matters. We tend to associate specific habits with particular locations. That's why studying in bed might make it harder to sleep later. You've blurred the lines between relaxation and productivity. To strengthen your habits, assign them to dedicated spaces. Work happens at your desk. Exercise happens at the gym. Relaxation happens on the couch. Keeping these contexts distinct helps reinforce the right behaviors in the right places. Here's a reflection question for you. Is there a habit you've been struggling with lately? How could you redesign your environment to make it easier or harder to perform that habit? Sometimes small tweaks like moving your phone charger out of the bedroom or placing your running shoes by the door can lead to big changes over time. The takeaway from this chapter is clear. Your environment is a powerful ally or enemy when it comes to building habits. By making cues obvious or invisible, you can guide your behavior without relying solely on motivation or willpower. As James Clear puts it, design your environment so the good habits are the path of least resistance. Before we wrap this up, take a moment to reflect. What's one change you could make to your environment today to support a positive habit? Write it down. Even a small adjustment can set off a chain reaction of improvement.
Great.
All right,
Let's
that
move
wraps
on
up
to
chapter
4.
5 of Atomic Habits. This chapter focuses on the second law of behavior change, making habits attractive. James Clear explains how our brains are wired to chase rewards, and by leveraging this natural tendency, we can make good habits more appealing and bad habits less enticing. Here we go. Chapter 5, The Seductive Pull of Social Norms. Have you ever wondered why certain habits feel so irresistible while others feel like a chore? Why do we scroll endlessly through social media but struggle to stick to healthier routines? In this chapter, James Clear dives into the power of attraction, how our cravings shape our behaviors, and how we can hack them to build better habits. Here's an analogy. Think about a magnet. When two magnets are aligned just right, they snap together effortlessly. But if they're misaligned, there's resistance. It takes work to force them together. Our habits are similar. When a habit feels attractive, it pulls us in naturally. When it doesn't, we resist, even if we know it's good for us. So, what makes a habit attractive? It all comes down to dopamine, the feel-good chemical in your brain. Dopamine isn't just released when you experience pleasure, it's also released in anticipation of pleasure. That's why scrolling through Instagram or opening a bag of chips feels so rewarding before you've even done anything. Your brain is already imagining the payoff. Now, here's the key insight. You can use this same mechanism to make good habits more appealing. One powerful strategy James Clear introduces is called temptation bundling. This involves pairing something you want to do with something you need to do. For example, if you love binge-watching Netflix but hate doing household chores, only allow yourself to watch your favorite show while folding laundry or organizing your closet. Suddenly, the chore becomes a lot more enjoyable because it's tied to something you crave. Let me share a real-life example. Imagine you're trying to establish a daily walking habit, but you find it boring. Instead of forcing yourself to walk alone, invite a close friend to join you, or listen to an engaging podcast or audiobook during your walk. By adding an element of enjoyment, you transform the activity from a chore into a treat. But there's another layer to this: social norms. We're deeply influenced by the people around us. If everyone in your friend group loves hiking, you're more likely to enjoy it too. Conversely, if your coworkers snack on junk food all day, you'll probably find yourself reaching for chips as well. As James Clear puts it, the culture we live in determines which behaviors are attractive. This brings us to a powerful idea. Surround yourself with people who embody the habits you want to adopt. Want to read more? Join a book club. Trying to eat healthier? Spend time with friends who prioritize nutritious meals. Want to exercise regularly? Partner with someone who already has a consistent fitness routine. Their habits will rub off on you, often without you even realizing it. Now pause for a moment and ask yourself, who in your life inspires the kind of behavior you'd like to emulate? Are there communities or groups you could join that align with your goals? Sometimes simply changing your social circle or spending more time with certain individuals can create a ripple effect of positive change. There's another fascinating concept in this chapter: reframing your mindset. Often, the difference between sticking to a habit and abandoning it lies in how you perceive it. For instance, instead of thinking, I have to go to the gym, reframe it as, I get to invest in my health. Instead of dreading a task, focus on the benefits it brings. Over time, these small shifts in perspective can make a big difference. Here's a reflection question for you. Is there a habit you've been avoiding because it feels unappealing? How could you reframe it or pair it with something enjoyable to make it more attractive? Sometimes creativity is the key to unlock motivation. The takeaway from this chapter is simple yet profound. Attraction drives action. By making good habits more appealing and bad habits less tempting, you can harness the power of craving to fuel lasting change. As James Clear reminds us, the more attractive an opportunity is, the more likely it is to become habit-forming. Before we wrap this up, take a moment to reflect. What's one way you could apply the principle of temptation bundling or social influence to a habit you're working on? Write it down. Even a small tweak can make a big impact over time. All right,
Let's move on to Chapter 6 of Atomic Habits. This chapter focuses on the third law of behavior change, making habits easy. James Clear emphasizes that the key to building good habits isn't about having more discipline, it's about reducing friction. By making habits as simple and effortless as possible, you increase the likelihood of sticking with them over the long term. Here we go. Chapter 6. Motivation is overrated. Environment often matters more. Let's talk about something most of us struggle with, motivation. We often think we need to feel inspired or energized to take action, but what if I told you that motivation is overrated? In this chapter, James Clear flips the script by showing us how to make habits so easy that they don't require willpower at all. Here's an analogy. Imagine pushing a boulder uphill versus rolling it downhill. Which one feels easier? Of course, rolling it downhill requires almost no effort because gravity does the work for you. Similarly, when you design your habits to flow naturally by removing obstacles and lowering resistance, they become effortless to maintain. Now, here's the big idea. Human behavior follows the path of least resistance. If a habit feels hard, you're less likely to do it. But if it's simple and convenient, you'll find yourself doing it without even thinking about it. That's why James Clear says the central idea behind the third law of behavior change is to reduce the friction associated with good habits. Let me share a real-life example. Think about brushing your teeth. Most people don't struggle with this habit, not because they're super disciplined, but because it's incredibly easy. The toothbrush is right there in your bathroom. It takes just 2 minutes, and the reward, fresh breath and clean teeth, is immediate. What if you applied the same principles to other areas of your life? One powerful strategy James Clear introduces is called habit stacking plus